Hey guys, Avi here from Avi's Garage. Today we're working on the Vanagon, and we have a particular problem. Let me show you what it is. Alright, so I've taken the door panel off. I've also pulled back the moisture barrier in a couple of places. And the problem we have today is that the switch for the power window does nothing. Now I've tested the connections. It does have a good ground and power. I've swapped the two switches with the right and left passenger and driver side windows, and both switches work. So there's something wrong with the motor. Now, when I took the door panel off, you can hear the motor make a little click when the switch is depressed. So what that's telling me is that very likely this motor is seized up from water likely getting in the door. And so what I've done is I've removed the three retaining bolts. So there's a bolt here, and another one here that I've pulled out. And if you're not familiar with the mechanism here, there is a long metal rod that runs from the top to the bottom of the door that has a sliding mechanism on it, and that slides the window up and down. And what controls that are two cables that go around the door. And those cables are connected to the sliding mechanism using little plastic brackets that like to break, or little plastic connectors that like to break. And so I'm going to very carefully persuade this motor out of that hole and see if I can disconnect the motor from the mechanism that brings it up and down. So in here there's some gears, there's the motor engages these gears move the cable that moves the window up and down. So I'll be right back, but right now I'm just going to try to get this motor out without damaging the mechanisms inside. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got the motor out from the door. The easiest way to do it is to persuade it to the left, push it up in the door to the left, being careful not to really put too much tension on the connectors up there, and then just kind of rotate it out. Some of you might notice my moisture barrier is mostly made out of Gorilla Tape. I can say that works pretty good. So if you ruin your moisture barrier, several layers of Gorilla Tape do the job, maybe even eliminate some road noise. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to disconnect the power, and then there's two bolts that hold the mechanism. There's a name for these, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but that hold this mechanism to the motor. There's two bolts, one on either side. This one's easy to get off. This one's a huge pain in the ass because of where the power connector is, and you need just kind of a small wrench and some patience to get that one loose enough that you can wiggle the motor off. Now, I have seen these motors totally seized to these, which is a real pain. And in those cases, I usually squirt some penetrating lube in and then kind of pry at it with a flathead screwdriver until it pops off. They'll come off, but hopefully this one's not too seized up. And then we'll see if we can fix this motor. All right, so I've gotten the motor off. I just disconnected the power, removed these two bolts. They go on either side of the top of it. Now, just be careful. These bolts here, or these hex bolts, those are not what you want to remove. You want to remove the 10 millimeter bolts on either side. I was lucky it popped right out, and that's what it looks like in there. It was pretty dirty, or it is pretty dirty. So what I'm going to do now is connect power to this and actuate the switch and see if this turns at all. I can tell just from pushing on this with my finger that it's pretty seized up. So that's the next step. All right, so I reconnected the power. I actuated the switch and nothing happened. It didn't even move. And I couldn't manually turn this with my fingers, but I did put a wrench on it and turned it a little bit. And let's see if I can do this with one hand. I'll just set that down there. Yeah, you can see it. And when I actuate the switch, you can see now it moves. So what that tells me most likely is a bunch of water got in there, rust developed, any number of things, and I got it to move again. Will this last a long time? Probably not. I have a road trip coming up and I'm going to need to be able to roll up and down the window. So for now, I'm going to reinstall this. I'm debating putting a couple drops of grease in there. I definitely am going to squirt some electric cleaner in there. I'm probably not going to crack it open. However, these are hard to get parts now. And my suggestion is, if you have a broken one, first try what I'm doing now, see if you can get it working. If you can't, then the best thing to do is take it out of the vehicle, remove the hex bolts there, and attempt to rebuild it. There are instructions online, so I won't go into rebuilding right now. I've had a couple where I got lucky and there was just a soldering connection inside that broke, so I fixed that. A few others, we just have a lot of rust buildup in the bottom here, and so just cleaning it out actually gets it to work pretty well. So before you give up on these, they are rebuildable by us mere mortals, and so don't throw it away. So anyway, what I'm going to do right now is get this cleaned up, working as well as possible, reconnect it to the window mechanism and actuate it a few times, see if I can get the window to go up and down, and if I can, we'll button all this up. Alright guys, it's going to be hard to show this on camera one-handed, but I've reconnected the motor to the mechanism. I didn't even bother bolting it in. I just held it together with my hand like this. Now it's keyed, so you're going to have to like turn it into place. And I tried the motor and it didn't roll the window up and down. So I took the motor out again and I squirted some electronic cleaner in this, let it sit for a second, gave it a squirt of WD-40 up here, and then connected the motor again, and sure enough, it's now going up and down. So between the motor and the window mechanism, the gearing in here, it was just all seized up. A lot of water gets in these doors, it's not surprising, and it's been sitting for a while. So right now I'm going to get the motor re-bolted up. I'm going to get it back in the door and make sure it still goes up and down. Alright, so we got the glass back in, or the glass has been in, but we got the motor reconnected, and all the wiring's connected here. I haven't put the door panel back on because I wanted to make sure everything worked. I got the motor and mechanism back into the door. I'll warn you now, it's kind of a magic trick to get this thing in and out, so don't get too frustrated, go slowly. Keep in mind the edge of this metal is sharp, and don't be like me and forget to put that plastic retainer back on. So there's a specific, yeah, there you go, you can kind of see it. There's a specific retainer for the right hand side and the left hand side, and this is the driver's side one, so you can see the plastic right there connects to the bolt right there. If you put the motor back in and you bolt it up here, it's a real pain in the ass to put that back on. So make sure you put that back on before you bolt the motor in. But we got power to it now, and we're gonna check it, and it's rolling down as well, as good as Vanagon power windows work. So I'm happy with that for now. It was probably just from rusty sitting for too long. Will it last? Probably not, but it'll work for now. So that's another episode of Avi's Garage. Thanks, like and subscribe.